This is my second Instructure Con, and I came to Camp Canvas last year, and it was perfect timing for us because it coincided, the first day of the conference was the first day we went live with Canvas courses, and just about every single one of the management team that worked in the university was over here when that happened. So we were very happy we got to avoid all the panicked emails. Luckily it went very smoothly. So I'm here today because I wanted to share our story about how we've moved from Blackboard into Canvas, but also how we've really addressed learning design during that process, how we were trying to enact some change, because we all know just a change of platform doesn't mean a change of practice or an enhancement to the student experience with learning design. So that's what I'm here to share, and I'm hoping that it will help you, because I know I was really helped by people last year. And I'm also hoping some of you are slightly ahead of where we are, because I'd really like to know your tips and tricks as well as we move forward past this changeover and into a business as usual environment. So we are still a mission in progress. We are rolling out our final lot of Canvas courses right now. It coincides with semester 2 of this year, and then we'll be 100% up and running inside of Canvas, and we close off Blackboard at the end of this year. So mysterious accents and mission control. I might not sound so Aussie to some of you. I'm actually from Wisconsin originally, and then lived in Texas. Yay! Other Wisconsin. And then moved over to Australia and studied at the University of Adelaide, and then started working at the University of Adelaide because I loved it so much. It was great. So I don't sound like an Aussie, although there are plenty, there's one over there, that do sound like a regular kind. But for those of you who don't know, Adelaide is where that little radar is, down the bottom. Some of you may be familiar with Melbourne and Sydney over the other side, but we like Adelaide down there, it's nice. Our mission control is the University of Adelaide, and for those of you who aren't familiar with our context, we have 4 campuses and approximately 20,000 students and 3,000 academic staff. So that's kind of a size for you, and when I talk about our university, I'm talking about the whole thing, so not a particular school, college, whichever one you refer to it as. So that's a few pocket statistics. You can look at this again later if you're really interested. And we do have about 27% international student cohort as well. We do deliver on-campus education, so through a blended learning environment, and we don't have really a whole lot of online courses, but we might be getting there. So our mission was transition is not enough, okay? So I'm going to be using the word transform throughout this, because if we aren't just talking about a change in platform, we really wanted to focus on that change in practice. And so our project was actually called My Uni Transform at Adelaide. There we are. I couldn't even remember the name of my institution there for a minute. It's very sad. I'm sorry. And we decided that we would make it extra special by moving learning management systems and lecture capture system at the same time. We thought that would be really nice and easy task for us to do. And that involved also moving from a opt-in kind of lecture capture system where you could start recording to a automatic capture system. We felt very, very popular amongst staff when we introduced that. So basically, because we are from the Southern Hemisphere, it felt kind of like this. Upside down. So as I said, we were moving from Blackboard to Canvas. How many of you are Blackboard? We're Blackboard movers. Great. I can pick your brains, hopefully. You can pick mine. How many of you have already moved and you're fully on Canvas? Almost, or almost, or almost. How many of you are moving or thinking about moving? So haven't quite done it yet. Okay. Hopefully I can share give you some nice ideas and what not to do. And I'm going to be looking to the people that raise their hands first to give me ideas on how we move into a business as usual context. So we've been moving 2,300 courses from Blackboard to Canvas. And I actually should state that we actually had 3 learning management systems in operation at the university. We had our medical school who was using a bespoke system, and our computer science school was using Moodle. And we've actually moved everybody into Canvas, so it's not just Blackboard. Our myUni Transform goals were about trying to get an easy-to-use learning management system for the majority rather than for the minority, and have a consistent experience for our students, as well as a focus on course design and getting that consistency, ensuring all of our courses met the minimum guidelines for use of myUni, which is Canvas. When I say myUni, Canvas. And trying to get staff to really embrace the opportunity for uplift, because that's what it was. It was an opportunity to change practice. And we wanted to improve our staff and student satisfaction with the whole University of Adelaide learning environment. So why did we choose this particular mission? What prompted it? We undertook a review, probably like many of you, of our learning management system. We kind of have a look at the environment every 3 years or so to see if what we have is right for us, and if there's anything else on the market that we really should be pushing either the vendor to be looking at, or if we should be adopting a new product. We were on Blackboard for 14 years, and we reviewed the learning management system in 2015, and we did a detailed comparison of those products over there. And what we found was that when we did the review, we felt like they were pretty much almost on par. Like if we could cope with any of the 3 systems, probably you all feel like you could cope in any of the 3 systems. But what really prompted the move, and because both of them, all the systems kind of compared favorably, but it was our student voice that was really pushing for Canvas. They were the ones that were really the most enthusiastic about it, felt it really made a difference in terms of ease of use, in terms of mobile, in terms of the opportunities that were available there that didn't feel nice in the other systems. So it was really the student voice that drove our decision, tipped it quite far over the edge of the others. So our students were telling us, we feel like this is an opportunity to have more consistency across courses in layout and design, that they would want more use of the myUni system, and that they felt that this would offer greater consistency in how that went, and that staff and students wanted a better layout and usability. So we felt like that could all be achieved in the move over to Canvas. We had a pretty aggressive timeline for rolling this out. So we did our review in 2015. We licensed Canvas in March of 2016. And we went live with our first 200 courses in July of that same year. And then kept working on courses, and we went all in. So any course that was being taught in Canvas by January of the following year. So quite an aggressive time frame. We had a few people tell us that it wouldn't be possible. It was, and we survived and we're here. With our rollout, we did it we're doing it, I should say, because we haven't finished yet, in a 4-stage process. Our first stage, those 200 courses, was focused across the spectrum of use. So we didn't just focus on early adopters. We felt that sometimes our faculty would feel it was the same voices over and over again, and if we only ever used our early adopters as our champions, it was really easy to go, oh, but that's so-and-so, and of course they're gonna do that, and I can't possibly do that. So we really did try and get people from across the spectrum to engage in that first stage so that we could have new champions and people could really see how it worked across disciplines, across different skill levels, etc. So we had some people who volunteered to be in the stage, some people who were volunteered by others to be in stage 1, and some people who ended up in stage 1 because they were a new course and they'd never run in Blackboard before, and we weren't going to run any new courses in Blackboard. That was going to be a waste of time. We needed a few agents to make this happen. I'm sure you've heard the word agent quite a lot now throughout the conference. But we did have quite a team of people to make this happen in the time frame and make it successful. And it just wouldn't have happened without the dedication of some of these folks. So we had our team of eLearning advisors, and that's my team that we work with. We are at our highest point, we had 12 eLearning advisors at the peak of the project, and now we have 8, kind of continuing on. We had My Uni Assist ambassadors involved in our project, and these were groups of students that we hired to work with us. Not only did they provide a student perspective to the way we were looking at designing courses, but they also provided at-elbow support to our staff. So that was, you could make a time, they would come sit with you in your office one-on-one and answer your questions about Canvas and sit with you and help you use it. And they were just totally invaluable, and the project would not have run without our students involved. We also had our My Uni support team who offered technical assistance and worked with the Canvas 24/7 support in order to support staff and students. We had our IT training team who ran our workshops about how to use Canvas. And of course, we had academic staff involved all the way around, all the way along, and our teaching applications team in technology services were our cues for this. So they worked on all of our integrations. They solved problems when they came up. They were absolutely fantastic, and this entire project really brought our teams much closer together in the way we communicate and the way we work now collaboratively in the rollout of any new features. We had to do a great deal of planning, and I'm going to speak more of the learning design and ELA, eLearning advisor side of things, because that's my team. We had to do a lot of planning around how we were going to support this, how we were going to support trying to get an enhanced course design and enhanced student experience. How do we capitalize on that opportunity? How do we reach out to faculty? What was the best model that was going to work inside of our environment? And because of the timeline, we only had 12 people, and we only had until, in this case, July of that year to make it happen. So we came up with a model of support where we would actually be reaching out to our faculty or staff one-to-one. So we decided we weren't going to do a group approach. We trialed it, didn't feel it worked so well, and we felt like people really wanted to engage one-on-one. They felt their course was unique, which it is, that they wanted to have that time individually with a e-learning advisor and someone to help them technically as well. So we went for it. The next video is a bit quick, but it's a bit of a summary. So I had to speed that up because it's a bit long otherwise and don't have too much time. But basically, 7-step process. Our e-learning advisor team would actually review a course first inside of Blackboard and review the course outlines that were available. And that course outlines are a brief description of the course, the learning outcomes for that course, the assessments, the weightings of those assessments, and a general kind of teaching schedule. So did it have lectures and tutorials or practicals or labs, kind of how the learning was structured. And we did that, and we went through and we reviewed it against our minimum guidelines, and then also looked for opportunities for uplift in there. So were they trying to have group work in class? Were they already using Blackboard to try and support that group work? If they weren't, why weren't they? And kind of a few questions. We then had a 1-hour meeting. Well, actually, in stage 1, we had a 2-hour meeting scheduled to talk to our academics about what they wanted their experience to be like for their students online. How did they want that to complement what they were delivering inside of the classroom? How could we help them to help their students achieve the learning outcomes for the course through the use of technology? What would that look like? What did they think the barriers were in the old system? And was it possible to address those barriers inside of Canvas? We also wanted to look individually at the Blackboard courses because there are things that don't translate. You know, journals, wikis, blogs. They don't have those titles in the new system. It doesn't look like a direct translation, right? We had a number of plugins and features that we'd specifically built for a Blackboard environment that we just didn't have yet in Canvas, and we're still working to build some of them. So we needed to have that conversation with people so they weren't surprised when they came into the new system. And we talked about different ways that they could approach how a student might blog in that course. What would that look like? So not only about the technology, but about that experience. So what did they want students to feel when they were doing that? What barriers were the students experiencing, do they think, if they were feeling that they weren't engaged in those activities, those types of conversations? After that, we would have an agreed action list that we set with the course coordinator and with the student ambassador and ourselves as e-learning advisors. What were we going to do? We didn't always have the answers. We were new to Canvas too, so there were lots of things that we needed to take back and investigate. Yeah, I don't really know how that worked. Let me have a look. Let me go and check that out. Let me ask somebody else. Our MyUni Assist ambassadors did a lot of the move of agreed content between the systems, but we did try eventually to avoid the lift and shift. So we did start off trying to extract things out of Blackboard and pop it up to Canvas. We thought that might be an easier way to approach it. It was not, because it doesn't translate, and it shouldn't. It's a totally different philosophy of platform, right? We had a vision that we formed for that conversation that we wanted to have with academics. We thought that this would be the ideal thing we would want someone to say to us after they had gone through this process. And so that's, we wished academic staff would say, the collaboration with the e-learning advisor empowered me to use best practice design principles to create an active learning environment for my students. They enabled me to use my course learning outcomes to drive creation of learning content, activities, and assessments. So that was the real purpose behind our conversation. Sometimes the hook in the door was about the technology and how to make it work, but the aim was to really have that conversation and kind of go, why are we doing what we were doing in the old system? Why do we want to keep doing that? Do we want to keep doing that? And start planting some of the seeds, those ideas. We were really targeting consistent design at a minimum level. Okay? We knew not everyone was going to put their hand up in the air and say, yes, please, I just want to transform the way that I teach. I see the opportunity there. I'm so excited. Please, I want to redesign, and I want to deliver it in the next 2 weeks. That would be great. Some people did. Some people were really excited, and that was fantastic because they'd already started thinking about it, right? And then we came along at the right time, serendipity. Other people were a bit, okay, I just need to get used to the new technology. I'm not quite comfortable yet. I just need to get in there and get using it, and then I want to have this conversation. And some people hid from us and didn't want to have the conversation at all. But we did adopt a template design, and in that template was more than just, here are the elements and here's how you use it. We tried to provide people information about why they would want to provide some of these things, some templated text, and we also worked with academic staff to create some resources to put inside of the template. One of our focuses was on having a welcoming environment for students to come into. So we do use home pages in our design, And I'm just going to show a quick video of one of our academics who developed something for other instructors. I think that I might have to press play on this one.
Hello, my name's John Kellett and I'm a Programme Coordinator here at the University of Adelaide. I recommend creating a 1 to 2 minute welcome video to introduce yourself and other key staff to students in your course. You may want to introduce the types of activity that students will undertake as part of your course, what makes you passionate about the topics you'll explore, your expectations about learning in the course, and key resources.
So I've trimmed that up for the purposes of today. We talked about the different tools that are available to help them do that and the supports. And for the first time ever in my life at the university of 4 years, people are actually contacting us and going, I'm really interested in creating a welcome video for my students. I think that would be nice. How do I do that? I want to create a welcome video for the guest lecturer that I've got coming in week 6, because that way they can get to know them before they come so they can have some questions ready. So it prompted conversations. That's probably one of the most viewed videos by our academic staff, about 3,000. So John is now one of the probably most well-recognized academics across our campus. I'm just going to scooch through some of these because I've been talking too much. My timer is telling me I'm running out of time. One of the things that we made sure was in our template was our student evaluation of learning and teaching. So we really had to, we wanted people to focus on letting students know what feedback they'd received about the course in the previous years and what they were doing to address some of those concerns. How they modified the design, how they maybe changed the way they approach tutorials. Did they engage in a flipped classroom approach now because of the feedback that students provided? Students were really keen to see how their feedback was valued in the course, because it was often only undertaken at the end and you never really knew where it went or what happened to it. So that was one of the focuses in our template that we rolled out. Sorry, I'm actually going to skip that because we're running out of time. And I will make these slides available, so if you wanted to have a look at any of those, you're welcome to. We created videos around the template and why it was created and how it was used. It was actually co-created by students and academics at the university, and we felt that was really important to have all the voices at the table. And I'm very excited that Blueprint is happening because it's going to make our lives hopefully so much more easy. We did have to change tactics quite a few times during the process. It's a very iterative approach we took. So like I said, stage 1, we had 200 courses. We felt like we probably had a little bit more time. We had a 2-hour conversation. We also had a follow-up conversation after that with academic staff. That wasn't going to be so possible when we were trying to do the 1,200 courses in the next stage. So we did have to have a think about how we were going to do that, what might we need to change, and how were people actually responding to needing to come to a 2-hour meeting and then a 1-hour meeting with us. Is that too much time? Were we giving them what they needed? So we did a lot of whiteboarding. We love whiteboarding and Post-its, lots of whiteboards and Post-its. And we made some changes along the way. So in the second part of our approach, when we were rolling out for semester 1 with 1,200 more courses, we did what we call, we flipped the meeting. They flipped the classroom, we flipped the meeting. And what we did is we tried to send out our questions in advance for people to have a think about. We sent out a video and a couple of questions that were really based on discovery, design, and then implementation. So, what do you want your students' experience to be like? How do you think your course should look? How do you think it should be structured? And what is it that you actually want to keep? So we had that approach. We abandoned the second meeting that we had because in our time frame that we were implementing, we found that actually it was too quick a turnaround time for a course coordinator and academic staff. They were maybe teaching at the same time as we were trying to move them into the system. They were undertaking research. We were asking for even more of their time. And it just wasn't, we were saying, have it done in 2 weeks. If you could do that in 2 weeks, that would be great. And we'll come meet with you again and discuss what is and what isn't possible. That didn't happen. And what we ended up doing is coming to a lot of meetings where nothing had actually occurred, so it wasn't really useful. So what we did is we removed that and we put most of our efforts, instead of having that second meeting, into kind of right before semester started, drop-ins, workshops, emergency at elbow assistance in the office, that sort of thing. And that tended to work quite well. Our third iteration is we moved into discipline-based teams. So throughout stage 1 and stage 2, we had our pool of eLearning advisors and our pool of My Uni Assist ambassadors. And it was really, well, we're gonna make a meeting with you, who's available, and you have these people, and you're free at 2:30 on Monday, so you get these 2 people because they're also free at 2:30 on Monday. And we really wanted to, we kept thinking and reflecting on how we were doing and our approach. And we kind of decided, we're starting to feel like it's a bit impersonal now. We're working with people that we might not have worked with before because we're working now across discipline areas instead of within certain schools. And it was kind of like, you get these 2 people, and if you contact us again, you might get somebody else. And then the next time you contact us, you could get someone else again. And everything was coming from a central email system as well. So there wasn't a name that people got in that first point of contact. And we did have some trouble with getting people engaged and responding to some of our contacts. And we thought, why not give it a try? Give it a try. Be a bit agile is the term, right? So we broke down into discipline-based teams. And so certain My Uni Assist ambassadors worked with particular eLearning advisors, and they formed pockets. They then chose how they would contact course coordinators, when they would contact them, would they allow them and opt out of the meeting, or would they say, you have to have a design meeting with us? Because they knew the discipline area best. They knew the better way to approach it. They could start building very close relationships with discipline heads, with heads of school, with associate deans teaching and learning. They were able to build that relationship, and that worked out really well. And that's really something that we're going to be taking into the future. For those of you who like numbers, these are numbers. So the little asterisks are because we're not quite done yet. They've changed. But we've had over 1,000 learning design collaboration meetings with academic staff. Quite an achievement for our team. And we've had over 409 at elbow sessions where a student went out when requested to support. And there are so many more conversations that occurred that were not recorded. So many of us had had conversations in the coffee line with people because that's where they were at and that's where we could have the conversation with them. And a little interesting fact, it's taken about 1,500 coffees to make this possible. We counted. We still have ongoing support for all of our staff and students. So we have a continuing professional development program that we're about to roll out. We have our learning designers, our eLearning advisors for drop-in sessions every day. We have drop-in sessions for our My Uni support team where you just want to see a face and speak to a person. We have that. We have Canvas 24/7 support. We still have our My Uni Assist ambassadors. We have our online resources. Inside of Canvas, we've built our My Uni Learning Center. And of course, the thing that we're really focused on now is the Canvas community and how we can leverage that with our staff. So that's a little bit about our My Uni Assist ambassadors, which I've already said. And we did try quite a lot of different ways to engage our faculty, staff, and students. One of the things we definitely learned from last year's conference is that swag is incredibly important. So we did everything from congratulations, you've just been canvassed, have a coffee on us, to download the apps, get in the app world, and win an iPad. Follow our tips and tricks, pick up stuff, and get candy. We did frisbees, as one does. We did stickers, we did earbuds, and we did really cool pens that are also USBs. We tried everything, and it worked. So the evidence in the file for our success, I can read them. Did the sign come up just before? I think I have 5 minutes left. Oh, sorry, 10 minutes, thank you. So some of our staff feedback is convenient opportunities to ask questions and leverage experience of other users. The coffee vouchers and other incentives to attend were a really nice touch. Caffeine will get everyone moving. The course was redone after 8 years. So that's someone who hadn't done anything on their course for 8 years. It was literally a blank canvas. I used the transformation to think how I could interact better with students and learning. Some of our support for students, they really enjoyed Canvas 24/7 support, and that they could ask a question at 2 o'clock in the morning about how do I submit an assignment, and they would actually get a response. We finished on time. These are some of our achievements, which I've already talked about. Some of our challenges were that we had variable staff engagement at times, and we would really see things go up in peaks. So during semester breaks, we'd have an increase of people participating. When it came back into semester, it would dip down. Fridays were dead days. Nothing happened on Fridays. Everyone was gone on Fridays, certainly on Fridays. We did find that we had a lot of issues with data availability and consistency between what was in our PeopleSoft program, what was recorded, and what people told us on the ground. Like, oh, this person's the course coordinator for microeconomics. I'll call you up and say, oh, hey, let's meet up, because we're going to work on microeconomics. I'm not the course coordinator for microeconomics. I was the course coordinator 3 years ago, but I'm not anymore now. So we had lots of those conversations, and that took up a bit of time. But we had a lovely transformation resource coordinator who was able to solve a lot of our problems there. We have actually looked at our Stage 1 courses and how they've changed in terms of our minimum guidelines and what staff felt about the courses. So here, we've got about 50% of staff who don't really want to change and aren't anticipating changing, but we still have quite a few that have actually changed the way that they do assessments or have plans to make changes, how they've presented course content, the types of learning activities that they're creating and the sequencing of them, the feedback that they're providing to students. We have a real push for providing more frequent feedback to our students. How they're undertaking their admin inside of the platform, which for a lot of people is quite a big deal because it chews up a lot of time that you really just want to spend on teaching, learning, research. We had course improvements as well across our minimum guidelines. So some of our minimum guidelines are they have to give access to students to the course outline, they have to provide contact details, make sure their assessment expectations are online, the lecture recordings are available, and they have their student evaluation of learning and teaching. So we've had increases all the way along on every single area, which is fantastic. Some of that was driven by the way we've developed the template. So if you used it, you got a lot of ticks on here, right? Some of our staff feedback about the support we provided, the most valued interaction that they found was with our eLearning advisor, having that one-on-one time to talk about their course and meet them where they're at. Thank you. And we did a staff evaluation survey, and many of the staff felt that Canvas was better able to meet their pedagogical goals, either more or at least the same as. The ones that reported less often talked about particular bespoke tools that were inside of the Blackboard system or tools that we had built. And we're working with those guys so they can actually have a voice in how we develop new tools to integrate in with the new system. So they get their first one in the door. One of the things that I really valued from academic, and it really changed the way that we explained the difference between the two platforms to people, because it was quite a barrier, was the penny dropping moment was when I realized that Blackboard is merely a filing cabinet, whereas in Canvas you're building a website for your course. And it's so true. We found that a lot of people, if they still had the old LMS goggles on and they were viewing Canvas, they felt it was confusing, it didn't make sense, it didn't, all these things, because they were really used to their old way of doing things. Once those goggles came off and they were able to see it as more of a building an experience, building a website, and that's how it worked, it made sense. And they were able to use it much more easily. And now we're on to the next mission, which is trying to transition into our business as usual process and really still capitalize on all the relationships that we have built throughout our time with academic staff. We have met now almost every single course coordinator in our entire university, some of whom didn't even know we existed. And so building on those relationships is our next step. So I'd love to hear from you about how you've been building on relationships, and we'll go to questions. Thank you.
So you mentioned that you have over 3,000 faculty that you were hoping to reach, and you had mentioned that you wanted to reach out to them individually and have meetings with them individually. So I'm curious as to how, do you have a timeline for that? I mean, that just sounds, with 12 people, that sounds really overwhelming. So I'm just curious how you decided to approach that.
So we sent out initially emails to staff because we knew that that was something they would actually get. Every other method, we couldn't guarantee that someone was going to read, say, a newsletter, and that someone would actually pass by the photocopy room that had the big poster up in it that said what it was all about. So we did it through email at first, and then we also we went and we did roadshows across every single school. We went and did a presentation about what it was, how you could engage, answering questions, and sometimes they were really, really hard questions that we were being asked about why we had to change systems. But just every possible method of communication, we were out there and just working with everybody we could.
But ultimately, they were the ones who had to take the initiative to say, yes, I'd like a meeting?
Absolutely, because it was not mandatory. No policy on it, right? Yep. Any other questions? Yes?
Do you keep track of instructors or the courses to kind of make sure that you were hitting places? We were talking about having dashboards for colleges so that the colleges could tell this percent was done or something like that. Did you do anything like that?
Absolutely. We did all of our tracking using something called Jira. Yep. So we had every single course was a ticket inside of Jira, and we had our process, those 7 steps, as columns, and all of our team members, when they had an interaction, they would shift it across and leave comments and all that kind of thing. Absolutely. That's the only way we could manage the scalability. Yeah. Any other questions? Any other tips for me? I'd like some tips. No? Not one? No? I do have some bits and pieces here, not that I'll use it as a motivator. But if you are looking at what kind of things you might want to give out to your staff or students, come up and grab something if you'd like, or have a look. We have our tips for our students on what Canvas can provide them, and our tips for academic staff as well. So if you want to grab any samples of any of those and steal them, use them, do whatever you like with them, you're more than welcome. Thanks very much for coming.